All right. So, are you ready to dive deep with me today?
Always.
Awesome. Okay. So, today we're going to be looking at this blog post from Multicultural Counseling Services, and it's called Working with Acceptance. And I don't know about you, but this really got me thinking what if it's like accepting ourselves, like all our little quirks and everything is actually like the key to unlocking some like real personal growth?
It's so interesting that you say that because this blog post really focuses on these like pivotal moments of self-acceptance. And it's not even just like these feel-good concepts. It's more like these moments are a jumping off point for like major shifts in our lives.
Yeah, like finally realizing that I'm pretty awesome just the way I am.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. And it's interesting how this blog post connects that idea to Carl Rogers and his idea
Yeah.
of like the fully functioning person. Now, I vaguely remember this concept from like my Psych 101 class, but it always felt a little textbooky to me. Could you maybe like connect the dots a little bit for me and the listeners?
Yeah. Okay, so Carl Rogers believed that everyone has all this potential inside of them, and that potential is just waiting to be unleashed. So this fully functioning person is someone who's really tapped into all of that potential. They are self-aware, they live in alignment with their values, and they're not letting outside pressures kind of dictate their lives.
So basically, they're just like living their best life.
Exactly.
I love it. But how do we get there? Because the blog post also talks about self-actualization,
Uh-huh.
which kind of sounds like something you'd see on like an inspirational poster, but I'm guessing there's more to it.
Oh, there's definitely more to it. Self-actualization is this like inner drive that we all have to kind of become like the best versions of ourselves, like having a compass inside of you that's pointing you towards growth and fulfillment. And an important part of that journey, according to Rogers, is this idea of achieving congruence.
Okay, congruence. This is one of those psych terms that always trips me up. Could you maybe break it down for me?
Okay, so imagine that you have two puzzle pieces. One piece is how you see yourself right now, and the other piece is your ideal self. So congruence is when those two pieces fit together perfectly.
I get it. So like when those pieces don't fit, when there's like a gap between how we see ourselves and who we want to be, that's when we start to feel lost or unfulfilled.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And the blog post actually talks about a client who's struggling with this. This client is making all of these major life decisions, like their career, even who they marry, based on what their family wants and not what they truly want. So they're basically living someone else's life.
Oh man, I could relate to that feeling of trying to fit into a mold that just wasn't made for you. It's like you're constantly trying to be someone that you're not.
Yeah, it can be exhausting.
Totally.
And that is where this concept of locus of evaluation comes in.
Okay, walk me through this. What exactly is locus of evaluation?
So, locus of evaluation is about where we place the power to judge and make decisions in our lives. So, it's about, are we basing our decisions on our own values and desires? Or are we basing them off the expectations of other people?
So it's like an internal compass versus external pressures.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in that example with the client was operating from an external locus of evaluation.
So they were putting everyone else's needs above their own.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that lead to like some serious consequences in the long run?
Absolutely. When we seek approval from others constantly, we end up living a life that isn't truly our own. It's like we're performing for an audience all the time, which can be very draining.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it can lead to dissatisfaction in relationships and even burnout.
So how do we shift from that external to an internal locus of evaluation?
Well, that's where Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes in.
Okay, I've definitely heard of Maslow's hierarchy, but to be honest, it's always seemed a bit abstract to me.
Okay, so imagine a pyramid. At the very bottom of the pyramid are our basic needs, so things like food, water, and shelter. Once we have those needs met, we can move up to safety and security. Then it's love and belonging. Then self-esteem, like respect and recognition. And then finally, at the very top of the pyramid is self-actualization.
So it's like building a house, you need a really solid foundation
Exactly.
before you can start adding all the fancy features.
Yeah.
But like, don't our needs kind of fluctuate?
Yeah.
Like some days I just want to like connect with people. And then other days it's all about crushing deadlines.
You bring up a good point. It's not a rigid ladder. Our needs can definitely change at different points in our lives.
It's more like a dance than a climb.
I like that analogy. It's about understanding how our needs kind of work together
Okay.
and recognizing that self-actualization is a process.
A process.
Yeah, and speaking of that process, the blog post talks about some of the characteristics of people who are self-actualized, according to Maslow.
Okay, hit me with it.
Okay, so these people, they tend to perceive reality more accurately. They aren't really swayed by like illusions or societal pressures. They're also really comfortable with uncertainty. They're accepting of themselves and others. And they're usually more spontaneous and creative.
So they're like the cool kids of the psychology world?
Yeah, you could say that. But most importantly, they're proof that embracing our true selves, even with flaws,
Yeah.
is totally possible, and it can lead to a really fulfilling life.
Okay, that brings us to this really powerful quote that I found in the blog post by Carl Rogers. He says, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." What do you make of that?
So it's like saying, I see you, self, with all of your quirks and imperfections, and I'm okay with it. And from that place of acceptance, we can start to grow and evolve.
So it's like giving ourselves permission to be the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly.
But like what happens when all those insecurities come back?
Oh.
You know, those voices that are like, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough.
We all have those inner critics. But the more we practice self-acceptance, the quieter those voices get.
I love that. So it's not about like erasing those negative thoughts completely. It's more about learning to recognize them
Yes,
and choose not to let them run the show.
exactly.
So it's like we're developing a more compassionate relationship with ourselves,
Exactly.
warts and all.
Yeah.
You know, this reminds me of something that I read recently about how self-acceptance isn't just good for like our mental well-being. It can also impact our physical health.
Oh, that's really interesting. Tell me more.
So studies have shown that people who practice self-acceptance tend to have lower levels of stress hormones, like cortisol,
Wow.
which can impact like everything from our immune system to our heart health.
That makes total sense. When we are constantly putting ourselves down, it's like we're living in this constant state of stress.
Right.
But when we accept ourselves, we create a sense of inner peace that can positively influence so many areas of our lives.
So self-acceptance is like the ultimate life hack.
Pretty much. And the blog post also connects self-acceptance with our ability to accept change. It's like when we stop resisting who we are, we open ourselves up to all these new possibilities.
Yeah, like we can finally write our own story.
Exactly. And that story might include challenges and setbacks along the way, but we'll be better equipped to handle those challenges when we come from a place of self-acceptance.
Right. It makes us more resilient.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring it back to like the focus of the blog post, which is working with acceptance in therapy and life. What are some practical things that we can do to start incorporating this idea into our lives?
Well, one practice that's really helpful is mindfulness, which is all about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. So when we become aware of our thoughts and feelings and our sensations, we can start to notice when those moments of self-criticism come in.
So instead of getting caught up in those negative thoughts, we can just observe them and let them pass.
Exactly. And as we become more aware of our inner critic, we can start to challenge those negative thoughts and replace them with more supportive and compassionate ones.
So we're training our brains to be kinder to ourselves.
Yes.
Okay.
Another helpful thing to do is to focus on your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
We spend so much time focusing on our flaws that we forget about all the amazing things about ourselves.
Yeah, it's like we have this highlight reel of all our mistakes.
Yes.
But we never replay those moments when we totally rocked it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I challenge you to create a strengths journal where you write down everything that you are good at, no matter how big or small.
I love that. It's like a little pep talk from our future selves.
Yeah.
But what about those areas where we really want to improve? Like, does self-acceptance mean that we just like settle?
Not at all. Self-acceptance isn't about complacency. It's about recognizing that you are already worthy, even as you're trying to become a better version of yourself.
Right.
In fact, I think self-acceptance is the foundation for growth and change.
Okay, so it's like we can't build a second story if our foundation is crumbling.
Exactly.
So when we accept ourselves...
We create a safe space for exploration and transformation.
Okay, so it's not about giving up on our goals. It's about approaching them with self-love and compassion.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
This has been such a great conversation. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of self-acceptance.
Yeah.
But it's definitely given me a lot to think about. What about you?
For me, what stands out is that self-acceptance isn't a destination. It's a practice. It's something that we work on every day. It's about choosing to treat ourselves with kindness even when we make mistakes.
Yeah, I love that. It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
And like all good journeys, it's going to have its twists and turns.
Yeah.
But it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm curious to hear from our listeners. What does self-acceptance mean to you? What are some of the challenges that you face in embracing your true self? Head over to our social media and share your thoughts. We would love to continue this conversation.
Yeah, and if you are feeling inspired, I challenge you to just take one small step today to practice a little bit more self-acceptance. Maybe it's like writing down 3 things that you love about yourself, or just noticing when your inner critic starts talking, and choosing to respond with kindness. Remember, self-acceptance is a gift, and it's a gift that keeps on giving.
It does.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
It's like saying, hey, I see you self with all your little quirks and imperfections, and I'm okay with that. And it's from that place of acceptance that we can finally start to grow and evolve.
It's like giving ourselves permission to be the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
But like, what happens when those pesky insecurities creep back in? Those voices that tell us we're not good enough or smart enough or whatever enough.
Yeah, those inner critics, we all have them, but the more that we practice self-acceptance, the quieter those voices become. It's not about erasing them completely, but learning to recognize them and choosing to not let them run the show.
So it's not about reaching some perfect state of like unwavering self-love. It's more about developing a more compassionate and understanding relationship with ourselves.
Yes. Okay.
It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress.
You know, this whole conversation is reminding me of something that I read recently about how self-acceptance isn't just beneficial for our mental well-being, but it can actually impact our physical health too.
Oh, really? Tell me more about that.
Well, apparently studies have shown that people who practice self-acceptance tend to have lower levels of stress hormones, like cortisol, which can have like a positive impact on everything, from our immune system to our cardiovascular health.
That makes a lot of sense. When we are constantly beating ourselves up, it's like we are living in a constant state of stress.
Right.
But when we learn to accept ourselves, we create this inner peace that can really benefit like all areas of our lives.
So self-acceptance is basically the ultimate life hack, pretty much. And the blog post also makes this interesting connection between self-acceptance and the ability to embrace change. It's like when we finally stop resisting who we are, we open ourselves up to new possibilities.
It's like we're finally free to write our own story.
Exactly. And that story might include like challenges and setbacks, but we're better equipped to navigate them when we come from a place of self-acceptance.
Right. It makes us more resilient and more adaptable.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the blog post's focus on working with acceptance in therapy and in life. What are some practical ways that we can start incorporating this idea into our daily routines?
So one simple but really powerful practice is mindfulness. It's about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. So when we bring awareness to our thoughts, our feelings, and our sensations, we can start to notice those moments when self-criticism kind of creeps in.
So instead of getting caught up in those negative thought loops, we can just observe them and let them pass. Exactly.
And as we become more aware of our inner critic, we can start to challenge those negative thoughts and replace them with more compassionate and supportive ones.
So like we're training our brains to be kinder to ourselves.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Another helpful practice is to focus on your strengths. We often spend so much time dwelling on our flaws and what we perceive as weaknesses that we forget to acknowledge all the amazing qualities that we have.
Right, it's like we have this highlight reel of all of our mistakes, but we rarely replay those moments when we were awesome.
Yes, I challenge you to create a strength journal. And in this journal, just write down all the things that you're good at, no matter how big or small.
I love that. It's like giving ourselves a pep talk from our future selves.
Exactly.
But what about those areas where we genuinely want to grow and improve? Does self-acceptance mean we just settle for mediocrity?
Not at all. Self-acceptance isn't about complacency. It's about recognizing that we're already worthy and valuable, even as we strive to be better.
Okay.
In fact, self-acceptance is the foundation for meaningful growth and change.
It's like we can't build a solid second floor if the foundation is crumbling beneath us.
Exactly.
So when we accept ourselves as we are,
we create this safe and supportive space for exploration and transformation.
So self-acceptance isn't about giving up on our goals. It's about approaching them from a place of self-love and compassion.
Beautifully said. You know, this whole conversation has got me thinking. If self-acceptance is really the key to unlocking our full potential, like, what are we still holding back from fully embracing about ourselves?
Yeah, what parts of ourselves are we still like trying to hide or change?
You know, it's like we've been conditioned to believe that we need to be perfect
Right.
in order to be worthy of love and acceptance.
Right.
But like, what if those imperfections are actually what make us so unique and interesting?
I love that it's like those Japanese kintsugi bowls, where they repair broken pottery with gold, like the cracks actually become part of the beauty of the object,
Yeah.
a testament to its resilience. What if we could view our own flaws in the same way?
Exactly what if those things that we've been trying to hide are actually what make us special?
Yeah.
What if they are the source of our strength and creativity?
That's such a cool way to look at it.
It
It's
is.
like we've been given permission to embrace our whole selves,
Yes.
messy bits and all.
And this idea of self-acceptance really ties back to what we were talking about with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, remember how self-actualization sits at the very top? I think true self-actualization requires a deep level of self-acceptance.
Okay.
It's about recognizing and appreciating our unique talents, our quirks, and even like our shadows.
So it's not just about like achieving our goals or reaching our full potential. It's more about becoming who we were truly meant to be,
Yeah.
authentically and unapologetically.
Exactly. It's about living a life that feels aligned with our values and our passions and our deepest truths.
I like that.
And that is a recipe for a really fulfilling life.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like we just scratched the surface of this whole self-acceptance thing, but it's definitely given me a lot to think about. What about you? Is there like one takeaway that's resonating with you?
For me, it's that self-acceptance is not a destination, it's a practice. It's something that we have to cultivate every single day. It's about choosing to show up for ourselves with kindness and compassion, even when we mess up.
I love that. It's a reminder that it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah,
And like any good journey, it's going to have twists and turns and ups and downs,
for sure.
but it's a journey worth taking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for today's deep dive. But before we go, I want to hear from you, our listeners. What does self-acceptance mean to you? Head over to our social media and let us know your thoughts. And if you're feeling inspired, I challenge you to take one small step today to practice a little bit more self-acceptance. Maybe it's writing down 3 things that you appreciate about yourself, or simply noticing when your inner critic pops up and choosing to respond with kindness. Remember, self-acceptance is a gift you give yourself, and it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everyone.